Recording has started. You can speak now. Chabra sir, please.
Okay, yeah. So, we are to explore the field of identification. Actually, when you look at any word, a whole lot of associations float around. And uh, so one wonders what aspects one looks at. What does it have to do with sorrow, hurt, escape, feelings? All kinds of associations are there. How does it begin actually? It begins outwardly. There's need to create some kind of unifying factor. Like outwardly, there is uh, the sun at the center of the universe in a way. And inwardly, outwardly, we have to organize things. So there's always some kind of unifying factor gets created. And the same process happens within. But that's probably at the at some level it works, it's required. But when does it go wrong and where does it go wrong? What do we observe? Why is it at all a problem? If it is a problem, I don't know how you look at all this. Because I think we should, we can create dialogue and, we can explore together. And maybe if there are at any point of time any questions emerging, please feel free to express, because I don't intend to just make it a monologue for 20, 30, 40 minutes. So just let's look at various aspects. When does it? Where is the need for this? Uh, like there are sensations, there are feelings, there are experiences. Uh, why does the mind not stop at acknowledging them? There's a feeling of, say, anger, and just acknowledge it. There's a feeling, but the moment one verbalizes it, the verbalization itself brings in nuances and positive, negative, and holding on to it or justifying it, condemning it. But does acknowledging do that? At the level of acknowledging, if you have, there's a feeling of, because there's a momentum of a collective momentum that in which we live that passes through our mind, and there are comparisons, there's a likes, dislikes, and there's an anger. So that feeling is there. Some feeling is there. That phenomenon is there. Why is it not sufficient to acknowledge it? Why does one jump over to verbalization, fixing it, creating a whole narrative out of it, story out of it? Is it essentially an escape from something? I don't know what it is. is it there's need to uh, kind of have some kind of something to hold on to. I was just was reminded of one theater of on around Kabir, and so in Bhojpuri it was being expressed as such. जिंदगी में खूंटा मिलना बहुत जरूरी है. So there's always one want something to hold on to, something around which the life can revolve, one can feel secure, safe. Like a child, you run to parents, you run to, who look after you when you have trouble. And this seems to continue. Maybe those puntas, those whatever you want to cling to, hold on to, they keep varying, they keep changing. But this insistence on having something to hold on to continues. Some core that gets created or recreated. It may change form. It may change its version, but the need to capture something, have some orientation. Now, is this need there existentially, or it is a habit of the thought? Because thought can't help doing it. And in the process, what happens? In the process, some kind of, because thought is being fragmentary, it only creates something which gives a sense of unifying factor, but actually it's another fragment. So that's why you go from one kind of unifying factor to another. So that keeps changing also. So there's no solidity in it, because thought can't create any solidity. It gives a semblance of solidity, but it itself keeps changing. So can the mind see this? That what we call ours, or identify ourselves with, even at a gross level, one can see that my house, my property, my this thing, my that, my qualification, my all that identifications are, one can probably more easily see the flimsy. They have their place in a very limited frame, and but they don't create. They can't create a unifying factor actually. So but at a even subtler level, you say my experience, and we give so much importance to it because it's my experience. I have seen it. I have experienced something, and then I interpret that, and then create a full narrative out of it. So, and how arbitrary and self-created it is, and it doesn't take you anywhere. It doesn't. It takes you only in a circle, so round and round. So what is it? Because in that, somewhere there's a hope to come to some unifying factor, right? And till we realize maybe that hope itself is a factor of distortion, is hope itself will prevent you from looking at things as they are. Find out what is really happening. No? Because your hope will cover your imaginations, your desire, all that covers up. You know, uh, it doesn't let you see things clearly. And that's um, another thing. I think there's some confusion of terminology that happens, that when we are uh, maybe unconsciously looking for clarity, but we always use the word security. I'm just wondering, I'm just sharing whatever is popping up. You can, you can please feel free to join in. I'm just thinking aloud, um, that why is it that uh, we don't realize that it is clarity that the mind needs, and we interpret it as security, and that we interpret again in terms of something or the other. With clarity, you can't do that. Can you? You know, conclusions, you may have a relatively rational conclusion, or you have thought over something, reflected for a long time over something, and seen many aspects of it, like we do in at function level, and you come to a reasonably acceptable conclusion where more people can agree, yes, under the circumstances this seems to be the most reasonable, rational thing to do. But there is a certain maybe tentativeness there, and you are willing to re-examine, re-look if some new factors come in, you know. Uh, but uh, do we have that kind of willingness and readiness in our daily life vis-a-vis or in our psychological field, or whatever relationships we have, we relate to the world, relate to nature, relate to others, relate to our own whatever ideas are hovering, and you look at them. So what? Uh, just wondering uh, why we are not able to see that it is the clarity, that sense of having uh, an overview of things, where things, details fall in place. Like we say, the clarity about terms of reference in the functional world. Similarly, the clarity about not so much details, but there's clarity in approach, maybe, that you look at things, there's a certain clarity in approach, that when you approach any issue, things fall in place. Maybe that is what we need, what is required, or what we probably unconsciously seek. I'm just wondering. But it gets confused with we get influenced by the word in the, out of these factors that prevent, factors like fear, hope, despair, and then running away from that, finding some escapes, more reasonable escape than the other, always looking for, that's a pattern, and we get trapped in that pattern. And for a while, we feel secure in some area because you've got a job. We didn't have a job, so now we have some regular income, and we feel we are secure. Or we have outer factors that create some kind of semblance of stability, which again the way life is can get challenged. New factors come in. You know? So we are thrown hither and thither. And so always uh, taking recourse to the same um, instrument that can't create, that can't deliver uh, that sense of overview. You know, it's some can't give us that approach that that makes everything fall in place. Aren't we looking somewhere? The mind needs that. Oh, and when we see that, we go from one, in the process for identification. What happens? We keep changing, identify ourselves with this or that. Then where does it take us? No? And where is the need? What is that? Uh, Actually, where's the need to identify? What makes us identify ourselves with whatever? What is that entity? Is there that entity? That uh, needs a hold. You know, what brings into being that center? Where is it really? You look for it. Where is it? You know, it keeps changing. Outer factors, cluster of factors brings it into being for a while, and then it keeps like the clouds. I'm sitting in front of, from the windows, I can see you know, the ranges of mountains and the clouds and the dark clouds and the evening clouds, white clouds, still have the light of the sunset. And uh, there's always this movement. There's always this movement. And same thing is within, no? So there is no fixed point in a way. One wonders, where is that fixed point? No? It is maybe functional, tentative. Do we see that it is tentative? No? And is it that we confuse it with something we want to create permanent point we can uh, take as orientation from where we look at everything. No? But is there such a thing? So there are only these uh, maybe the brain is good at questioning. It can raise questions, but whatever answer it finds is so limited. Is will require again examination. Will be a kind of a reform that will need further reform. So which will be, uh, you know, certain formulation which will be all may sound okay, but then you will very quickly see that it doesn't provide full answer. No, it's incomplete. It's limited. Huh? So the mind goes from limitation to limitation. So why create that? Why create that limitation? When we see that it can only go from limitation to limitation, then if, why can't the mind see that there's a there's a sensation and acknowledge it? There's a feeling, acknowledge it. And is there any need to identify it or verbalize it or further go, indulge in it? Like I think this here maybe we can look at the process of listening or watching. You're in nature, you look around and just what happens. And the listening is it is there such a thing as act of listening, simple act of listening, without identifying this is true, this is false, this is good, this is bad, this is so wonderful. Yes, the mind may say that. Mind may come up with these expressions. But it is possible for the mind to remain tentative. Because there's a movement. Movement takes over, And in that, these are like waves coming up, Of course, you can't separate ocean and waves. They just seem to pop up together. But apparently we focus on something. We go back to our culture of concentration and focus on this. Maybe at some level it is required, but as we remain, somewhere we remain anchored in that culture of concentration. So go from one point to other, and instead of allow the act of seeing, watching, listening, because there's a movement in that. In that act of listening and act of watching, there's a movement. But apparently there's quickly going back to memory, going back to something you can hold on, verbalize, identify. And any identification, what does it do? What does it deliver? I think that's one question we can ask. There must be some advantage or some, even if it is illusory, but we don't know. It may be somebody has said it is illusory. We don't know. For us, it seems it's delivering something. It is providing something. It's giving us some hold, some something I can come back to. That Surdas lines, "Mero man anat kahan sukh paave, जैसे उड़ी जहाज को पंछी फिरी फिरी जहाज पे आवे, मेरो मन अनंत कहाँ सुख पावे." So somewhere we have we find ourselves in this ocean. The only orientation we have is that jahaj, where we some kind of khunta, some kind of tether, some kind of anchor. We get into the habit of getting back to. We think otherwise we are lost. And we don't face the question, why shouldn't we be lost? What is wrong with being lost? Or what is wrong with being, disturbed, which we often resist. We generally resist disturbance. We don't want to be disturbed. And life is full of that. Full of vitality of disturbance. So what is wrong in being disturbed? So what is it that identification deliver? What does it deliver? What does it? Maybe I just, if you don't mind, I just read just one para on nationalism, which is one aspect which actually you it's like a sheet. You just touch it at any corner and the whole sheet gets moved. you know, so it's it's one of those typical identifications we are all full of. The whole world is full of. You know, rarely examined very deeply. In daily living, we can theoretically talk about it. But very rarely observed that when you are watching video, when you are watching, countries' relations, and so what is happening within? How is the mind receiving that? Listening, if at all listening, because listening is something, I don't know when we listen to anything really. Just allow the listening to happen. Do we allow the listening to happen, or we listen to this or that? And the moment we do listen to this or that, there's a, I wonder whether there is, how quickly there may be a whole lot of nuances of prejudices and that may be floating, and I wonder whether mind is aware of them. It's so quick. So I'll just read a small part of it, small question answer on nationalism. What is it that comes when nationalism goes? Obviously, intelligence. That's the Krishnamurti. Obviously, intelligence. But I'm afraid that is not the implication in this question. The implication is what can be substituted for nationalism. Any substitution is an act which does not bring intelligence. If I leave one religion and join another, or leave one political party and later on join something else, this constant substitution indicates a state in which there is no intelligence. Just part of it. So we were asking ourselves, what does it deliver? This, we say, we generally go from one identification to another. We say this identification has not delivered. That my belonging to this religion has not given me what I want. It has not given me safety, security, outwardly or inwardly. So I move to another camp. This place, this village has not given me enough security. I move to the city, or I move to some other country, or to other what I think is is heaven. No, so move from one identification to another. But the fundamental question would be: does any identification really deliver? Except maybe temporarily, except in certain aspects, but it creates other problems. Do we see that, or it is in our daily life? It seems to provide something, and we say, well, it's practical. It's practical to belong to something, some some country, some institution, some religion. It's a practical, that's a to have a good job, have a regular job, have regular income, have this, that. Of course, these are all certain things are practical, but they have implications. No? So is it that we only look at all this in a very limited way and never really come face to face with implications? Huh? Do you want to go into implications, or are we aware of them? I would like my friends to uh, participate and create a dialogue. I mean, um, because we you know, uh, why is it so hard to see the implications that no, that's only one escapes are all one escape better than the other. So it's the habit of running away from this or that and never coming face to face. That any problem, somewhere somewhere in our head, we have those glimpses. We do understand that facing any situation is what resolves. No, never running away. Any situation. Huh? I mean, physically, of course, you can. In some cases, when there's fire, you may run away. So, but this, especially inwardly, and any feeling, any so-called problem, any issue in the psychological frame, when you look at it, acknowledge it, and not move, what happens? And we see when we move and escape and rush, what happens then? We know both situations, don't we? So I would pause at this moment and suggest let's discuss this. You know, is it making sense? And why is it so? Uh, why is the mind not able to actually see through this? That it's somewhere logically we can see that it's much simpler to just uh, be with what works. No, facing things works. You know, it delivers, and running away doesn't deliver. Or is it just an idea? It's just idealistic. No. Do you also see this? No? So would you join me in this?
Thank you, Chhabraji. Harshad sir will want to say something, then Rajendran sir. Harshad sir, please unmute.
Yes. Are you able to hear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Chhabraji. You have asked many questions, and maybe I will try to answer some of it. Why do we identify? I think it happens without our awareness from very birth. when we are born, we get attached to the mother, and when the mother goes away, we cry. The baby cries. So this is happens naturally, this kind of identification with the mother. Now, what is identification? Is the process by which our mind attaches itself to something. In the case of the baby's mind attaches to the mother. And when the baby grows older, it gets attached to a toy or to the friends. And then later on, going to the school, maybe gets identified, getting attached to a boy or a girl, and so on. And most of us are identified with our culture, with our nationality, our religion, our language, and so on. And we are not aware of it. It happens just because we are reading so much about only about our country, and we don't know much about other countries, what is happening in the world. And we get also attached to objects like my pen or my toy, my house, my car, my bank account, and so on. And this also necessary part of it, that if we are not identified with things which gives us some security, then it becomes, we can get lost, even physically. So we identify with our house, otherwise we will go to some other house and it will create a lot of problems. So identification gives some kind of security. But if we go a little deeper into like nationality, when we feel secure in our country, but when we go to other country, other culture, other religion, then that identification with a particular country or a religion, it no longer gives us security when we go out. So, the, in my case, I was identified myself with a Hindu and Indian when I went to America, and I did not know. But it was very clear that I was trying to meet only Indian people and who could speak language which I speak, and try to be, keep away myself, maybe out of fear from people of other countries, other religion. And so only when I read Krishnamurti book and he was saying, asking questions, that why do you think of yourself as a Hindu or Indian or Chinese or American? He says these are just the labels which we have acquired because we have lived at certain places. But we are a human being, and what is happening in our mind, the same thing is happening in the minds of other human beings. And so, really, I felt this was something very new. I had not read such kind of uh, uh, thoughts where it questions the nationality and religion. So I really begin to observe outside, and I found that yes, Krishnamurti was true. Our minds are very similar. I was feeling lonely in America, and Americans were also feeling lonely in their own country, no relationship in the family, and so on. So when I realized that I am a human being, I am not an Indian or a Hindu, I begin to open up to people of many different nationality, and I lived with them. I shared apartment with them, whether they were Muslims or Christians or Chinese or Egyptian. I lived with people of many different nationality. But the deeper thing is that we identify ourselves with our ideas, thoughts, and feelings, and we hold on to these ideas. But these thoughts and feelings, Krishnaji says, they are just coming. You are what you think me is actually coming from thought, Krishnaji said. And that also I found something new, that this me is a product of thinking. How can I verify it? So I became very curious to look inner at my own thoughts and feelings. And when I try to catch the beginning of a thought, my mind really stopped. First time, maybe in my life. And it was that there is a different state altogether in human beings, what Krishnaji calls awareness or intelligence. And only when that intelligence or awareness is awakened, we can see our own thoughts very, very clearly. And that seeing, as long as that clear seeing, the freedom has not happened, identification will go on, whether we like it or not, and we cannot decide not to identify. And as Vijay Chhabraji said, that if we stop identifying with one thing, we get identified with something else. So only when we become very curious to look at our inner world and we are able to see if anger is arising, we can see the beginning of it. That is a real freedom, awareness. And then we can even look at the trees, we can look at human beings, we can look at everything without this me knowledge which I have gathered coming into existence. So there is a possibility in human beings to look, to listen clearly without previous knowledge coming into interfering with it. And that is what Krishnaji is talking about, that freedom to look, freedom to listen, freedom to learn. Because as long as we are not able to look at our own mind clearly, we cannot understand other human beings. And that is the whole purpose of philosophy, psychology, religion, spirituality, is to come in direct touch with our own mind and how it works and not getting stuck. As Chhabraji says, not, I think he said, not getting attached, identify with anything. That is a real freedom. And that freedom is possible, but is very, very rare. And so identification will go on as long as we are not able to see clearly our own mind. And that is where we have to focus on, not trying to understand other human beings, not trying to understand Krishnamurti, because I think people are trying to understand Krishnamurti through the words and then they think about it. It's not like that, I feel. Just reading a little bit, closing the book, forgetting Krishnamurti, and just looking within. And this, maybe initially one may need to make effort to do that, but later on, it can become like our nature. We don't need to make an effort to be aware, but we can see whatever is coming in our mind. So identification remains, it gives a security, false security. It doesn't give us real security, is in no identification, no sense of me. And that no sense of me is a real love or beauty. And in that, there is a complete security. Okay, I have finished. Thank you.
May I add just one, just one point that this continues. Obviously, this will continue and will go from one identification to another, as long as we don't see the implications. I think that's the point. That is, we don't see how dysfunctional it is. We think it is delivering something, but it is not delivering that. It is not giving us security. It is only giving greater mess. So we don't see the implications. So I think that is what we need to explore. What are the implications? What is it really delivering? On the ground. So that seeing the implications, does whatever miracle has to happen. That's what that does the work. No, not wanting to get over it or going beyond it, but seeing the implications. Finished. Yeah.
Rajendran, sir.
Thank you, Kamlesh ji. Namaste. Good evening to all our friends and elders. Thank you, Chhabraji and Parekh sir. This identification is I think, just like Chhabraji, I also want to share my loud thinking. So, this identification is our inbuilt animal instinct. For example, in a jungle, a lone wolf cannot survive. So it is prone to dangers. As Parikhs are told, it is as a security, the lone wolf has to identify with the one pack of wolves out of fear. Identification happens surely out of fear. So after identification with the lone wolf with that pack of wolves, then that pack of wolves is prone to attack from another pack of wolves. So that identification out of fear, the lone wolf identify with that pack, and that identification leads to another danger. Then that creates a fear of attack by another pack of wolves. So this is a vicious cycle, vicious cycle it is going on. And another thing I want to just to share with you is the fundamental, the basic, and the mother of this identification, which creates which is a source for all the problems. That is our voice in the head, the noise in the head, the voice of our thinking. The 24/7 it is going on in our mind. So we identify ourselves with that thinking that is my voice. It is me. It is ego. So that is the fundamental problem for all our that is the fundamental and the source of all our problems. So that false identification with our own thought, as me, as ego, as this is my body. So whether this voice is ours, whether this false identification with our thought as my voice, that I think is the fundamental and basic problem and mother of all identifications. So I want I would like this false identification of thought as me, as self, that needs to more exploration, I think, here. That's all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajendran, sir. Dr. Kulkarni.
Pranams to everyone. So it was a very sweet discussion. Let us understand the I. So few things before we go to the identification. Today I was listening to one of the Krishnaji's lecture. What he was saying was, let us go deep into this. I am not guiding you. Krishnaji is saying, I am not guiding you. Second thing he says, I am not helping you. The first, so we have left all the identification, started with K. Then he says, the most important thing. So just few days back, one of the Krishnaji's group, they asked, what is human being? So there are two eyes, human being. Human means the small eye, which identifies. In fact, even in that small eye, there is a self center. You're always working, seeing. See, when I'm seeing the Zoom meeting, I'm seeing only my photo, my video. Everywhere whatever puja I does, I have done. Others have done, that's not related to me. See, so here positive aspect of the identification we are losing. In Sanskrit, the word called mandala. Mandala means the center is everywhere in the circumference. It's infinite. That's what Krishnaji is saying. You are the world. World is you. You are not identified. You are identifying with Indian. I am Brahmin. I am Hindu. I am Telugu. Like this. So if we see and go deep into this, so first of all, this I can be infinite and expanded. And it should happen naturally. As Chhabraji is saying, we are not implying this. Most of the times, theoretically, we are working out. Then he tells, I am not guiding you, I am not helping you. But together we are learning. He says very deeply, we are all learning together. Harshadji has told very nicely this point. The moment we start identifying, learning stops. The moment we identify, we have stopped the learning. Then second point, Chhabraji pointed out, implication. We have started learning, but we have stopped living. We have stopped living because I am Dr. Amarnath, I am so and so. This is my turn. I is coming. Similarly, intelligence. Now, what we think intelligence in education, Krishnaji says clearly, who has come first, gold medal, you go to him. Prime Minister, you identify with him. The great person, you identify with him. The negative part of this, Krishnaji tells is, I am a sinner. Over. You stopped learning. I am weak body. I am small I. Over. Completely we have stopped. Completely we have come to the dead stage. If we see this without identification, without condemnation, without evaluation, without judgment, very soon the both parts of identification and disidentification, these are happening to the thought. That is what the I. So thought itself has got the power to shatter itself. That is what meditation, Krishna is saying. So identification itself has got the power of disidentification, just like in dream. We are identified, but the moment dream is over, we are disidentified. During dream also, disidentification is there. That is what the Sakshi or the real I, the source of thought, or Krishnaji mentions this as a subconscious and unconscious mind and conflict. We have never went into this. Whatever we are discussing, the physical eye or the mental eye, but we are talking about the subconscious eye, unconscious eye, as Chhabraji has discussed very nicely. So if we go into this continuous identification, disidentification, disidentification. So Sushti Sthiti Laya are going on simultaneously at the same time. That is what Krishnaji says is see the seer, thinker is not happening. So we are always under the spell of thought or the eye by just seeing deeply. So the most important is one is giving the meaning, and second is the formation of the image. I means one image seeing the other image. Is it possible? Let us look into this. When I form an image, there is no relationship at all. So if we see this continuously, even during the dream and during the daytime, then automatically disidentification happens. Not making, there is no effort or choice in this. Then the both identification, disidentification are over. Just like you are playing game in a role play. We are going to hotel. We have never identified. Everywhere, everything. This is my suitcase. This is my room. Huh? This is my bed sheet. Everywhere we are saying I, but there is no I. Similarly, Krishna ji is saying the psychological I or the self. Can you end at this moment, not later? So at the end, just if we see, the past is ending in the now, and there is no future when I identification comes to an end. So we are coming to the timeless factor. So the timelessness are the beyond the identification and disidentification. Once again, I thanks and salute all of you for giving great insight into this. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Som. Shakti ji.
यस मेरी आवाज आ रही है?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
You see, I just wanted to say that the basic identification is the identification with the image which I have made of myself, consciously or unconsciously. And it delivers me a sense of being, which may be false, but that is why I identify with this image of myself. Otherwise, I feel lost. Just that I wanted to share. Thank you very much.
D Murthy, sir.
Good evening to all. On this topic of identification, first we have to understand how the brain functions and how the security has to be created. The brain can function nicely and in a secured manner only when there is absolute security. And the thought understands this, and in its effort to create security, it has created the self. Thought itself is very transient, it is very flippant, it changes very frequently, and because it wanted to have something which it considers to be permanent, that's how it created the self, the thinker. And the other important point to be understood here is, as Krishnaji says in number of talks, a thought has no place in the psychological field. It has place only in the physical and the technological field, where it has done wonders, like development of technology, development of transportation, computers, and then surgery, medical devices, etc., and all, where thought is absolutely necessary, and it has done a great job. Like today we are talking on in this Zoom call, that is again is a creation of thought, right? But the same thought, when it enters the psychological field and its quest for security, it has created a thinker, the whole problem has started. Likewise, to create security, it has created nationality. It has created groups. Nationalism is nothing but a glorified tribalism, as Krishnaji says. In olden days, the tribal kings, they had their territory, they have got their queens and all, they fight with each other, they try to expand that territory, their country and things like that, and they try to have more wives and all that. The same thing is continuing now in the modern world. Nationalism is nothing but security, and then the country with a lot of power is expanding, and other countries are becoming subservient to that country. All these things happened. That there is no security, because when I call myself an Indian, I am separating from the rest of the other human beings. He will call himself a Britisher, he will call himself an American. So there is a division. The division leads to fragmentation, it leads to conflict, it leads to contradiction. That's why wars are taking place. So this identification is happening mainly because of the thought process. Thought process is a divisive process. A thought cannot move without division. And this thought, when it has created these illusory securities like religion, nationality, community, caste system, etc., they ultimately end up in dividing man from man. Whereas the psychological field of man is a unified field. And unfortunately, thought cannot operate in a unified field. It can operate only by division. That is the whole problem, as far as I understand. And also, because of this division, a lot of problems are coming. And because of this, the self itself is a very small entity and is a divisive entity, because the thinker is thought. There is no difference between thought and thinker, and it is limited. Because it is limited, and because the self is operating, you are going to loneliness, and you don't understand what that loneliness is. Depression and so many things will come. And again, to avoid that, you are doing something called identification with a bigger thing, bigger than me. Identify with the family, identify with the society, identify with the nation, identify with the religion. All these things are happening. But the basic problem of division, the problem of loneliness, the problem of emptiness, we are not understanding. Krishnaji says, what you are, what is what you are. You are not staying with what you are. We are afraid of that loneliness, we are afraid of that emptiness. So I identify myself with something bigger, like nationality, some religion, some god, or some society, service to the poor and all that. So this is the crux of the problem, and we should know that we should stay with that loneliness that is coming out of that identification with the self. And another important point is actually the thought has no place in the psychological world. Krishnaji also mentioned number of times it has entered the psychological world by mistake, innocently, in its quest for creating a security. But in the process, it created the thinker, the self. And the whole mess has become so big. And so many wars, human beings killing each other, is going on for millions of years. It still has never stopped. If you look at the animal kingdom, no species will kill its own members of other species. A tiger may kill a deer for food because it is a carnivorous. But a tiger will not kill another tiger. They may playfully play with each other, but no killing. Whereas human being is the only person who is uh, killing his own species. That is the biggest problem we are facing. So unless we stay with this loneliness, understand it, and also try to come out of that, understand the loneliness. Krishnaji, they got one nice book called Happy is the Man Who is Nothing. You should know to stay in that state of nothingness. Nothingness means is nothing but emptiness. And also, in one of the talks with Professor Anderson, Krishnaji himself says, it appears somebody told him, in Eskimo language, the equivalent word to thought also means something outside. If in Eskimo language, if somebody wants to tell somebody to go out, he used that word to say that he should go out. So what he's trying to say is, thought is at the right place only in the outside world, not in the inside world. Outside world means the physical world, the technological world, where it has done wonders. And also, you all must be aware, he talks of art of living, art of seeing, art of listening, etc. And he says art means keeping a thing in its right place. So, for us to have that art of living, we should know how to keep thought in its right place, which is the external world. And thought has no place in the internal world. Because of that only all these problems are coming. That's all from my side. Thank you very much.
Pradeep sir.
Actually, most of the things have been covered. Most of the things have been covered by Chhabraji, Harshad, Dakshinamurti, and a number, even Dr. Kulkarni was talking. And most of the times we are, it's a mixture of what someone said. Invariably, we are not not saying something, what are the ills of identification, but we are always quoting a number of knowledge gained as words from a number of personalities. So I want to make it as simple as that, as I have seen or experienced in my life without knowing any one of these personalities. So most of the identification is the result of conditioning that we have inherited. You see? So this is right. Harshadji also talked about right from the birth, you get attached to mother and all that. So we have inherited socially so many things. So this identification initially is with that. With actually is purely a psychological game. Individuals. It's not even group, because although we are affected by collective unconscious also, as Jung said, as after Freud, but all things we have inherited. So it's purely a psychological game which man is in general plays with his intellect and conditionings. But is it a problem to me? Because now all of us are taking as if it's a problem. It is leading to conflict. Is it? To me, whether this is a problem. So that has to be seen, because intelligence works in the present. Because new challenges, mind, bodies responds differently, and we may shift our identifications. What is the story of conversion from one religion to another religion? So easily, at a particular age, late in the life, any time in the life, why this happens? And man identifies with religion, nationalism, political sections, largely for security. Everybody has talked about it, with some hope to get something out of it. So, whether it's a problem that each one of us has to see in ourselves, around ourselves, identification naturally, whether realistic or imaginary or hope, to get something, some support from somewhere. maybe an individual man as a guru, maybe as a group, maybe as political power. But we all, whatever, we all want all those things in some form or the other. So identification usually is a very, very selfish way, looking for the fulfillment of my desires, my psyche. What do I want to become? So it's a complicated. Definitely, it's a very complex thing. So and very individualistic. Nothing much. I have nothing to say now more. But I have seen that we mix knowledge, all those quotations. The way we are quoting so many people to tell a simple point rather than telling my story if my identification has troubled me. So that will tell exactly what are the different ways, and that too it has no meaning as long as I don't tell my story. So this as a narrative it is good because we have read so many books of Krishnamurti, we have read so many books of Nisarg, that this, that, and all to get something out of it. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Chaitanya Nagar, sir. Please unmute. Chaitanya, sir.
Vijay Chhabra sir, please go ahead. Please.
Okay. See, one thing I think I mentioned that in the, maybe first I address what Pradeep ji was saying. That's a individual. Individually, one looks at it in a certain way, and whether individually this is a problem. Well, if you look around, I wonder whether anybody is really free of that, because it is all around. We see that this is what it creates. It creates havoc. It creates imbalance. Inwardly and outwardly, all the wars, all the division. When I go to, as a student when I was in Germany, and people would talk about, okay, oh, this is your Indian problem, like Indians are supposed to solve it, or why don't you solve it and all. And when you meet different people, it's any other culture, any other person coming from different background is a mirror, and we all are function as mirror. That's a relationship. In the mirror of relationship, we get to know ourselves. I mean, I'm not aware of my being an Indian, but when probably not to the extent when somebody points out certain things and shows me the mirror, well, we are different, you are different, and then we see, okay, then one wonders how is anybody different and how is the word is one. There was always this feeling of, one is walking on this earth and one was traveling and one was learning languages. So there was always this feeling. Somewhere we are together. At the age of 17, one wrote an essay on one word, government. I don't know why. When I look back, what did I know about the word? But there was this sense of it is all together. It can't be different. We are all human beings, and there is something wrong somewhere. So you don't know what is wrong, but you see that there's something wrong here. That when there's all kinds of divisions are created, all kinds of castes, all that didn't make sense, but was so prevalent, so dominating all over that one wondered. And when you go abroad with all the exposure to good university and good academic atmosphere, and there also the same thing, because one is shy of fundamental questions. So either we are shy of fundamental questions and say it's an individual problem, or it's and is there such a thing as individuality? Am I an individual? I wonder. Made up of so many things, so many factors make me up. So, and all kinds of identities come in, and they are imposed in a way. And I've imbibed, I've accepted them. I've not, till I examine them, there's part of me, and they're all floating. But in the interactions, then you look at this, that others have other kinds of stupidities. I have other kinds of stupidities. We are really very, only in details we are different. But certain values you hold fine, and they are okay, but they don't make sense to me. They are absurd. But that also shows the values we hold, and they hold, consider absurd. And for us, we took them for granted, and they are actually get questioned. So in this very process, you see where is the individuality? I mean, we are collective and individual. These are all words. These are all binaries we have created. There may be no such thing. It's a movement. Actually, life is movement. Everything is moving. One is moving. So this is also when Shakti says, for instance, there's the identification with the image. So I was wondering whether it's that identification with the image, whether that image is itself steady or it's also in movement. Is it getting reformed, getting questioned, whether superficially or radically, whether it is such a thing as steady? Is there anything steady? So there's a where's the, you want to really find the center, where is it? So there's, when you see that actually, in actuality, seems to show only movement. Things popping up, vanishing, popping up. And is there doesn't seem to be any fixed point. You may look for it. All one's life, one may look for it. One may give it any name, but it's not there. Is it? So is it possible, when one sees that there's all the time there's a movement inwardly and outwardly, is it possible for that movement to be aware of itself? Then remains the question. Because that what is that creates tentative center of you can a functional center to which may give you a sense of at that point being relevant, but whether that remains relevant next moment in another context is a question. So I wonder whether I'm not able to relate to this whole issue of individuality. Actually, there seems, I see that there's a where do I put my finger on? I'm not able to put my finger. I said, so there's a part of in this movement, there's a dance and dancer. What is happening? How can you separate the dance and the dancer? I'm unable to. I'm just wondering. It may show up in certain, yes, we say in a certain action reaction, something shows up and say, well, this is me, gets created in some way. You react, and that there's a, you say this is this fellow reacting. There's a background reacting. But is it stable in itself? Is it steady? because that gets seen, that gets questioned. So you move. There's only movement. That's what I see. And in just one more point, the beginning, I think when this process of identification, or because this is causing conflict. We don't want to live in conflict. Nobody wants it. Do we want it? And then we are creating it through this process of identification, which doesn't get challenged. We don't challenge it. We don't see it, or we refuse to see it. No, it's like a suicide. So but there's a natural observation. You see that there's any feeling coming. You can acknowledge the feeling, but there's a movement from acknowledging the feeling to identify. In slow motion, you can see this. In slow motion, you can see that acknowledging the feeling and not necessarily indulging in giving it a name and getting more involved. You may get involved, but you can still see what is happening there. You're acknowledging and then moving on to identifying and then indulging in and then getting into trap in condemnation or whatever process. Or you may see the absurdity of it, or the mind may see this. And so it's whether you love to play with this, slowing down and have fun and see what happens actually. So it's experimenting, or rather, the aliveness of life brings it out. That's all. I'm sorry if I've been a little, get passionate about it sometimes.
Thank you very much, Chhabraji. Time is over. It is already 7:32. Please close Modak.
1 minute.